Welcome to our next section on ethics and social responsibility in marketing. So this one is strongly connected with our prior slide deck on the marketing environment. So social responsibility and ethics in marketing is no longer just a separate trend or a buzzword. It has become an integral part of marketing and effectively an assumption in how we make our plans. There's a reason I include the ethics slides starting in chapter 1. That being said, sometimes there's still a bit of debate on how to approach this and proper integration into the strategy. So this debate is worthy of its own section. So here we go. So let's have an example to get us started. So the sign says beach litter, a free coffee if you collect a bucket of rubbish off the beach. Buckets are available from the cafe. Every little helps. So what's going on? Why might this cafe offer this? So hopefully you took the time to pause me and think of a few ideas, write them down or shout them out. So what did you think about? Maybe some of you said, oh, well, this is good at grabbing attention. You break through the clutter through such an unusual request. Some of you might have mentioned what it means to have a cleaner beach. Cleaner beaches make it more enjoyable for people to come, which means more customers. Goodwill might be something that might be built, that the cafe is willing to honor those who would be willing to clean up the beach. So those who appreciate clean beaches might like what this organization is doing, whether they decide to help or not. How about this? You get a free coffee. Now, customers get a sample of your product. And then perhaps just by going to the shop or looking around, now they know where you are. So if they're hungry or thirsty later, they know where to go. So one of the key ideas we'll be talking about is how marketing ethics isn't just something that you do. It's an integral part of your strategy. So we are zeroing in on a particular form of our environment in this chapter, the way ethics and cultural values guide our actions. Big idea is, well, we want to discuss how environmental forces can contribute to ethical dilemmas for an organizational strategy. So there are factors, their impacts, and potential outcomes. And discuss how a marketing action can account for both strategy and an ethical dilemma. So as a recap, ethics are the moral principles and values that guide actions and decisions of individuals or groups. They are socially constructed, where we as individuals and members of groups or societies abide, debate, and negotiate what we consider is right or proper. These ethics are further debated as organizations make decisions. And something that is important to remember is that these questions won't always be clear-cut. My major goal is for you to recognize how to discuss the ethical implications behind marketing decisions and be able to more easily reflect on your assumptions. That way, you may be able to more fully stand behind your ethical decisions, whatever your choice. So we are part of Laverne, which does stress values. So I would stress that if your dream is to be the best swindler and con artist ever, well, I really would stress that you are making a decision based on your ethics. And I honor your honesty, but I must stress our world is predicated on more long-term strategic planning. So, effectively, you cannot do very good strategic planning without taking into consideration ethics as guides to behavior. So, a major focus of the section therefore asks, what does it look like when ethics are applied to marketing, and why should I care? And effectively, the short answer is, we care because it's best to know not only what it means to be ethical, but ways to figure out what that should look like, and examples in real life as to different ways firms or your own conduct can be ethical or not. So when dealing with ethics, it's often a matter of two or more options that each have something desirable and something undesirable. So big idea about ethics is we're going to talk about it because strategic thinking is all about assessing fit, and ethics are a major part of what guides behavior. So some ethical questions are more likely to be clear-cut to many stakeholders. Here's an example from The Simpsons where the tour guide at a newspaper publisher is hosting a field trip. Tour guide: to protect Mother Earth, each copy contains a certain percentage of recycled paper. And what percentage is that? 0. 0 is a percent. So many customers and other stakeholders would likely see that statement, a certain percentage of recycled paper, to reflect that they were engaging in some sort of recycling effort. However, the fact that the publisher only uses 0% would mean they were being misleading. If they had not said that statement, a certain percentage of recycled paper, there'd likely be no trouble. So that's predicated on a presumption that you didn't have to say anything and suggests that you were delivering value where none was there. So again, some ethical questions are more likely to be a bit more clear-cut for a lot of people. Others maybe not. So for example, an article asked in Atlantic debated the ethics of just for show progress bars. So this was from a tax preparation program. The computer program does not need all that much time to actually double check your tax return. So that progress bar that achingly gradually scrolls across is not actually what the computer is doing. So what do you think? What are some of the factors and harms or benefits that come from this? So what came to mind? What did you consider? So for the article, on the one hand, customers derive value and satisfaction from seeing the bar. They feel happy their taxes are done. They may derive extra value from the program because they feel extra assured the program handled something difficult, as exemplified by that achingly slow progress bar. On the other hand, the article notes that those who want to change the current tax system or way people do their taxes may be concerned about what this may do. Customers themselves may feel uncertain if they feel like the value is not truly earned, or this may have prevented them from switching to a new solution. So just the sense that it's important to know what are the factors, harms, or benefits, and to what stakeholders. So what are those factors, harms, or benefits, and to what stakeholders? So this is a major theme of our ethical dilemmas. At what cost? Unfortunately, I don't have a nice clip, but imagine Morgan Freeman's dignified voice expressing indignity when someone toys with moral principles. This came from the Dark Knight film, where Batman's technology could be super useful for the immediate issue, stopping Joker's murderous rampage, but could create further quality of life and deadly issues alike down the line. As Lucius Fox warns, the massive surveillance device Batman had created seemed too much power for one man. So in the real case of Wells Fargo, the sales personnel, management, and upper executive branches all derived benefits when their aggressive sales system seemed to be reaping benefits, even if it could potentially damage credit scores or have more lasting financial damage for customers. So it could appear perfectly ethical if only looking at the immediate fortunes of certain persons, but was immediately harmful to many unwilling customers and long-term harm for Wells Fargo and affiliates. So remember, when we talk costs, don't just get caught up in terms of monetary costs like expenses or revenue. Money, after all, is just a means and tool toward further ends. What we do has an impact. So, all decisions have a degree to which different stakeholders benefit or are harmed. Sometimes it's even a matter of people debating if harm was ever done. So let's think of some ways we know corporations have earned controversy when balancing the needs of many stakeholders. There are lots of situations where nothing's illegal, but it's questionable. And certainly each decision made will have winners and losers. So kids in advertising is always very fraught, given kids are often found to be still developing their critical thinking skills. Toy companies and retailers often come under fire as well for gendering the toys, which some argue enforce very strict gender norms and could encourage bullying or other annoyingly bad outcomes. However, when some tried to reorganize and use different aesthetics for the aisles, other groups were upset. Employee welfare. So some years back, a very extreme example is in 2010, Foxconn had come under fire for its working conditions, which led to a lot of its employees committing suicide to the point they had to put up nets. A lot of its workers are vulnerable migrant workers. What role should Apple or other firms which use Foxconn do? Another example, so probably haven't seen this in a while, pink slime. Many customers felt food companies violated fairness and transparency. Finally, car companies often need to follow regulations. CAFE stands for Corporate Average Fuel Economy and is a government initiative that car companies must manufacture a category fleet of vehicles that have a certain gas mileage. Quite some time, there were separate regulations for passenger cars and what they called light trucks. So when SUVs were first coming out, they fell usually into that light truck category, which meant the car companies had a lower bar to pass. These new vehicles need only get the same gas mileage as larger pickup trucks and the really large cargo vans. Very recently, regulations have changed to catch up. Or how's about another example? Just now in California, housing developers see that the stronger CAFE regulations mean it is safer for homes to be built closer to the freeways, which of course means business for them and new housing for Californians. So we can keep going with examples such as payday lenders, who serve as a market that normally has no other choice, but at a hard bargain, whether it's a bad thing to rename a fish, and so on. For all these examples, it's important to consider the role of the firm in society. It's not its own little unit making money. It's part of this world. For all of these, public opinion often does not stay with the organization. The government and others will often increasingly notice issues, so it's important to always scan those factors. Who, what, and to what outcome. So to that end, social responsibility is the idea that organizations are a part of a larger society's welfare. Ethics guide what we consider to be socially responsible things to do. So per chapter 1, many of us find the marketing concept encourages us to think in terms of being mindful of immediate stakeholders and the larger society. So again, this is not to say that this is something completely new. It's a logical extension of what we already do at the marketing concept. So many firms or organizations create what's called ethical codes, which are a formal statement of principles and rules of conduct. They're guidelines to help employees know what practices are acceptable. So we're not talking just dress code here. That goes elsewhere. But in terms of behaviors for conducting business. So this one is from the American Marketing Association. The full version showing what types of activities constitutes these values is available online at the link down here. So as you can imagine, best results happen when the organization has to actually comply with their ethics code. They also cannot turn around and punish whistleblowers or those who might try to call out when the firm's not doing what they're supposed to. So if there are feelings that the top leaders of the company are not following, the rank and file will do likewise. So ethical codes have to account for these different norms and laws across regions and other nations. So these are things that need to be evaluated and done with care. But keep in mind, this is something that can be done to encourage a more proactive and ethical conduct. So just a reminder here from your book that what's considered ethical or proper marketing practice can and has changed. Namely, prior to the 1960s, the emphasis was caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. In other words, good luck, consumer, try not to make mistakes. Oh, too bad. Today, the emphasis, let's see, where's my mouse? There we go. Today, the emphasis is now predicated on the marketing concept, delivering customer value. Here are 4 rights outlined by President Kennedy that also exemplify what American culture tends to expect from marketers. So in his message, President Kennedy had discussed market society has grown increasingly complex and that there was often imbalance between buyer and seller. Therefore, he wished to bring about these 4 rights consumers should have: the right to safety, to be informed, to choose, and to be heard. Feel free to click on the link here to see the extended comments from the JFK Presidential Library. In sum, there is a shift toward more consideration to the consumer, which, as we will show, is very much in line with how modern business now aims to take care of stakeholders and, of course, fulfill that marketing concept. So while we often talk about consumers, modern industry also aims to show ethics in how competitors interact with each other. The book has many examples of the way there are ethical issues that relate to how we conduct business in relation to competitors or other organizations. Economic espionage still happens even while being illegal, for example. If you're interested, there is an activity in the extra items section at the very end of the slides which gives different scenarios in which this might happen. Remember, it's not just a matter of digging through trash, but any type of improperly discovered trade secrets, from eavesdropping or gaining competitor materials. So in this example here, Google's Waymo and Uber are facing off whether an ex-employee brought proprietary knowledge to Uber. Bribes and kickbacks also, while illegal, still happen, even despite there being more consistency about codified policies across different industries and trade organizations to stop this practice. It gets sticky because for some, it's a gift, and others, it's a bribe. Different cultures have different perspectives on how much damage is done versus what is achieved. Very recently, the football world, or soccer for us in the States, has been rocked by the FIFA kickback scandal. So in sum, espionage, bribes and kickbacks, and other actions are often illegal, so watch what you do with care. So here's an example when dilemmas intertwine both buyers and sellers. This clip from The Simpsons is poking fun at the saying, "It fell off the back of a truck." So when some goods, quote, quote, fell off the back of a truck, is to suggest the seller probably didn't come by the goods by legitimate means. So what's your responsibility when you buy stolen goods? What's your responsibility when you buy perhaps stolen proprietary knowledge? What are ways in which guilt or harm is more clear than others? Knowledge, ability to do one's due diligence, extent of financial harm, benefits accrued by other parties, such as building knowledge or harmful contract. So here's an example of the issue of buyers and sellers' knowledge when it comes to proprietary knowledge as the product. So there's a new technology called MOVA, M-O-V-A, which was a new motion capture tech where it captures facial expressions and is better able to recreate them as computer graphics. So think the Beast in Beauty and the Beast or Deadpool in his mask. A company where founder Perlman and associate LaSalle had this technology, but there was a big gap where LaSalle sold the assets to another company which then licensed its use to other big studios. So the sale had been disputed where Perlman, LaSalle, and the companies that felt they now owned the MOVA assets came to court to argue who owns the assets. Major issue is whether associate employee LaSalle had the right to approve the sale in the first place, whether Perlman had abandoned it, and what was the role of the SHSTC holdings, particularly given both pre and after the sale. There were a long chain of holding companies with the assets. And so not even including them, back to the licensees, big studios like Disney, Fox, and Paramount have meanwhile been licensing this technology all this time. Now the argument is how much should they have known? Perlman's Reardon LLC is arguing the studios should have known they must either stop distribution or give a cut of the profits to Reardon. So what should the studios have done? What is the line of ownership for the later creative or expressive works? This technology contributed to the creative work, but to what extent? Just something to think about when it comes to ethical decision making. So one of the common ways we talk about ethical development is based on human psychology. They found that people may follow certain morals for different reasons. Broadly speaking, pre-conventional asks, what's in it for me? How do I avoid punishment? Conventional, which is, I want to be a good citizen in line with society. I don't want to look bad. And post-conventional, what can I do beyond myself? How do I go above and beyond? I find this model very useful because you'll find each of these largely mimics most other social responsibility models we see, where one part always deals with the more immediate practical goals of survival. So they tend to be more self-centered and very immediate. There's usually always a second section with the expectations of others, or at least meeting standards. And the third, representing a more proactive stance toward benefiting others. So here's the one from your book. As noted, the pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional morality categories map pretty well to three concepts of social responsibility. You move from an inward, more focused, that's more reactive, to more outward and active focus. So, big idea for this is the concept of social responsibility entails taking a wider set of actors who make your decisions because what you do matters to the welfare of others. So let's end this section with an activity. So, ethical practices. So let's stretch our ethical reasoning by seeing how different stakeholders experience or report their positions. So go ahead, list reasons for and against for one of the positions. You'll notice that you'll have to think in terms of factors, impact, and potential outcomes. And one of the things that you'll find is that values can be interpreted in different ways. So take a practice turning a critical eye on these positions and your own thought processes. And trust me, some of these will be super easy. Some of these you may not be sure. And that's the idea, is practicing listing reasons for or against them from different perspectives and then seeing what's it about. Better yet, find another person that won't mind talking with you, especially if they don't always agree with you. What consensus did you come up with, if any? Interesting about the process will be what did come of it? How did you talk about it? What do you feel about it? How did it emerge? Maybe consider when you're done, was there something interesting that happened? Were you in agreement? And even if you don't have time to talk to someone else, go ahead and try these again for yourself. Because in the next section, we're going to move not just from looking at ethical dilemmas, we are going to look at how social responsibility can be used as a strategic weapon of sorts, a strategic tool. So, with that, I'll leave you to this activity and encouraging you to have a good rest of your time and to run with all this.